So, you've probably spent hours, maybe days of your childhood on websites that don't technically exist anymore. They're not deleted, not moved, just gone. Replaced by their own tombstones, little gray boxes that say, Flash is no longer supported. But here's the thing, Flash didn't really die, it was killed. And understanding why is understanding everything that changed about the internet. Today, we're gonna go on a journey of the internet's greatest creative explosions, and its most controlled extinction. This is the story of Flash, how it became the playground for indie developers, artists, and weirdos who couldn't get jobs at AAA studios. How it built Newgrounds, how a 12-year-old speedrunner could make a game that reached millions, and how corporate consolidation, profit incentive, and the rise of app stores quietly suffocated the most democratic era of game creation we've ever had. This isn't really just a story about a dead plugin, right? It's about what we gained when Flash died, what we lost, and why modern gaming will never be quite as weird, as free, or as yours as it was back then. So let us talk about how the internet killed its own golden age. To understand Flash's dominance, you need to understand what came before it. In the mid-90s, the internet was clunky. Your websites were static. Your animations were GIFs. Your videos, well, we didn't have those. The web was text, pictures, and the occasional moving dancing baby that somehow became the internet's whole personality for like a decade. Then in 1996, a small company called Future Wave Software created something called Future Flash Animator. It was designed for pen tablets, vector-based animation, it was light, scalable, beautiful, but no one cared. But then, Macromedia bought it in 1997 and rebranded it as Flash. And they made a decision that would change everything. They made the plugin free to distribute. Think about that. It's not really revolutionary nowadays, but in 1997, every other major web technology was proprietary, expensive, and gatekept. Flash was like, use us for free, make whatever you want. And creators did exactly that. By the early 2000s, Flash wasn't just an animation software. It was a complete environment. You could build games with ActionScript, you could create interactive experiences, you could stream video, all in one plugin that every computer had installed. Here's a crucial bit. Flash was easy to learn but powerful to master. That's usually the sweet spot for a creative tool. It meant teenagers in their bedroom could make games that were just as polished as anything from a studio. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't require you to understand C++. It didn't require expensive software licenses, and it didn't require a team of 20 people. It required just you, your computer, and your personality. And that personality had a home, Newgrounds, founded by Tom Fulp in '95, just as a personal website at first, but then it exploded into a cultural phenomenon the moment Flash made it easy to submit games. Newgrounds was something the modern internet has essentially lost, a meritocracy by chaos. There were no algorithms deciding what you saw, no engagement metrics, no TikTok For You page, just a database where you could sort by score or date uploaded. You'd click through hundreds of games, some were amazing, most were terrible, but you had the freedom to discover them. The same interface that let you find polished, beautiful point-and-click adventure games also let you find a game where you just click a stick figure over and over. The barrier of upload was so low that everyone tried it, and that created this ecosystem where failure was normal, expected, and not just okay. It was part of the culture. Let's take a look at the Henry Stickmin series. Henry Stickmin was crude. The animation was simple, but it was charming. It played with its own limitations, and then he made a sequel, and another, each one getting better, each one pushing the Flash engine further. This guy wasn't a AAA designer. He didn't have a publisher. He just uploaded to Newgrounds, got feedback, improved, and kept going. By Henry Stickmin 5, he was making something that rivaled commercial products. And Newgrounds didn't pick Henry Stickmin because an algorithm thought it was profitable. It became visible because thousands of people who happened to click through Newgrounds at 2 a.m. fell in love with it, me included. The community aspect cannot be overstated here. You had speedrunners, you had modders, you had forum communities discussing frame data, exploits, and optimal strategies. For Flash games, people were treating a browser-based stick figure platformer with the competitive rigor of professional esports. Games like N, a minimalist ninja platformer about a computer program trying to escape deletion, became deeply analyzed by the community. Players created level editors, contributed to speedrun guides, shared tricks. The game itself was free, and the community did the rest. And here's what made this possible: the design philosophy of Flash games themselves. Flash games had constraint, and constraint breeds creativity. First, file size really mattered. A Flash game had to load in seconds. You couldn't have 4K textures, cinematic cutscenes, or 50 gigabytes of art assets. This meant developers stripped gameplay down to its essence. One core mechanic, and polish the hell out of it, and then repeat. Let's look at Balloon's tower defense, for example. It's not flashy, no pun intended. There are no cutscenes, no voice acting, but the core loop is simple. Place towers, defend against balloons, manage resources. It's so perfectly tuned that it becomes addictive. Millions of people played it, and certainly not because it looked like modern Diablo 4. What made it nice was that it felt good. Facts over feelings. Fancy Pants Man is another perfect example. It really is just a stick figure jumping around, but the physics are pristine. The animation is fluid. The level design teaches you through play, not tutorials. Every pixel counted because you were working with so little. Second, constraint. Simplicity meant accessibility. If your game takes 3 minutes to download and understand, anyone can play it. The barrier to entry was not, do you own a $70 game and a console? It was, do you have a browser? That's all it took. This democratized gaming in a way nothing before or since has ever been achieved. A 9-year-old in rural Ohio could play the same game as someone in Tokyo. They can both be affected by the same game design, the same story, and they could both make their own game and share it with the world. Third, iteration was visible. Because Flash games were free and could be uploaded constantly, you could see a designer's growth in real time. You'd see a V1 of a game, scroll down and see a V1.2 and 2.0, each one better than the other. The creator's learning curve was public and celebrated. In modern games, you see a finished product. In Flash, you saw the process. That's massively different psychologically. It made game design feel achievable. And because these games spread through community sharing and not corporate marketing, there was this beautiful byproduct. Weird shit thrived. A game where you're blob absorbing things, sure. A point and click adventure about a depressed alien, why not? A stick fighter game with increasingly unhinged physics, absolutely. These games never would have made it past a publisher's design meeting. Too niche, too risky, not monetizable. And Flash didn't really care about that. Neither did Newgrounds. If people loved it, it spread. And people did love it, because weirdness is actually the default of human creativity, and corporate gatekeeping is what kills it. So what happened? Did we really go from a world where a teenager could make a game that millions played to whatever this is now? I think 3 things killed Flash, and they all happened almost exactly at the same time. First, Steve Jobs, yes, Steve Jobs, said Flash was bad actually. In 2007, Apple released the iPhone, and in 2010, Steve Jobs published a public letter explaining why Flash would never be supported in iOS. His reasoning? Flash was inefficient, closed source, insecure, and battery draining. He wasn't wrong. Flash was all of those things. Apple had just created a platform, the Apple Store, where the only way to distribute software was through Apple, which took 30% of all revenue. Flash was a threat to that monopoly. It was a way to distribute games without the App Store. Jobs' letter wasn't really about technical merit, it was about control. In parallel, the web development community was building HTML5, a real, open standard that browsers all supported natively. No plugging needed. You could make games in JavaScript, Canva, or WebGL, and it was the future of the web. The problem? HTML5 required real engineering skills. You couldn't just learn it in a weekend. You had to understand JavaScript, the DOM, shader programming. It was not designed for a 14-year-old in their bedroom. It was designed for actual software engineers. And in so, HTML5 professionalized game creation. Flash games on Newgrounds were almost always free. You made them for love, for community reputation, for portfolio experience. The ecosystem survived on instinct, motivation, not venture capital. But the App Store and mobile gaming brought monetization. And monetization required analytics, engagement metrics, viral loops, loot boxes. It required you to think like a business, not a creator. It required venture capital, and it required a team. A single person making something beautiful and strange, there's no business model for that. So it died. Adobe didn't kill Flash because of the technical obsolescence. Adobe killed Flash because it was obsolete to corporate interests. In 2020, Adobe announced that Flash would be deprecated entirely by the end of that year. All those games, all that art, all those communities, gone. Not that there was a good equivalent, but because control and monetization demanded it. The internet didn't move forward. It moved upward. Upward toward professional developers, funded studios, algorithmic platforms. Away from the weird, free, and democratic. Newgrounds didn't die, it's still there, but it's a museum now. A time capsule. Young people can visit it to see what weird games looked like in 2005. But they're not making their own Flash games because Flash is dead. They're making TikToks instead. They're uploading to YouTube, they're trying to go viral. The incentive structure has fundamentally changed. So here's the truth about Flash's death. We got some things right. HTML5 games are technically superior. JavaScript engines are faster. You can make 3D games on the web now that would have been impossible with Flash. Mobile gaming created a new genre and brought interactive entertainment to billions of people. But we also lost something that's hard to measure. We lost the permission structure to fail publicly. You can't fail publicly anymore and have it be charming. You need venture funding. You need a business model. You need users from day one, retention metrics, engagement curves. The ecosystem is optimized for success, which means most things die in private. What did the Flash era teach us that we've maybe abandoned? It taught us that constraint is a source for creativity, that small teams can outthink big ones, that communities matter more than algorithms, that weird can be valuable, that amateur can compete with professional, that the internet can be yours and not just something you consume. Look, I'm not saying Flash games were better than modern games. Modern game design is incredible. I'm saying Flash created something that hadn't existed before and hasn't been replicated. A moment where the distribution layer, the design constraints, and the community incentives all align to make something millions of people would play. And that moment is gone now. It's not coming back. Not with app stores, not with venture capital, not with algorithm feeds, that's for sure. The death of Flash is the story of the internet's growing up, getting serious, getting profitable, and losing its weirdness in the process. If you played Flash games as a kid, go back and visit one this week. Seriously, sites like Flashpoint have archived thousands of them. Play N, play Fancy Pants Man, play Henry Stickmin 5, download them, run them through an emulator. Let's all try to remember what it felt like to discover something free on the internet. And there's this thing that I can't help but think about. Somewhere right now, there's a teenager who could make the next Henry Stickmin, maybe the next Balloon Tower Defense. But they can't distribute it to 50 million people from their bedroom. The tools exist, but the ecosystem sadly doesn't anymore. Maybe that's what we should be thinking about as game developers, as internet creators, as people who care about what the web could become. How can we rebuild the permission structure? How do we bring back the constraints that breed creativity? How can we make it so a weirdo with a good idea can still reach the world? What do you think? Did you grow up playing Flash games? I certainly did. Drop your favorite game in the comments, bestie. You know, for engagement. Those games really mattered to people. They shaped how a generation thought about video games, how we thought about creativity, and about what the internet could be. Oh, and if you're not subscribed yet, how dare you? Go subscribe. This channel does deep dive on internet, game design, and the weird history of how we got here. New videos every other week. But mostly go play a Flash game. Let's bring back the culture.